Hey YouTube, it's Marita from the Nurse Lounge, and today we're going to talk about another sensitive subject. And unfortunately, these topics keep coming up because of the fact that they keep coming up. So if you want to know what I'm talking about, you got to stay tuned. All right, so we're gonna jump right in. So this is basically a story time of sorts, and it's truly a reflection of where nursing has come and where it still is lacking. So let me give you the backstory. So basically, if you all don't know, I am a master prepared nurse, registered nurse. I work OBGYN. I am a nurse educator and I do clinicals with nursing students. I'm in school for my doctoral degree or my DNP. And I just wanted to come on here real quick and just kind of talk. Well, it may not be quick, so go ahead and get you something to eat, some snacks or whatnot. Because when I kind of get into my tangents about certain things that I'm passionate about, they become long videos. But anyway, I want to kind of give you a backstory and then kind of tell you going forward what you should do in this situation. Or I may not be able to tell you what you should do because I can't govern that really. But I want to be able to tell my nursing students who happen to look like me what you can be prepared for when you kind of go to clinicals. Or, matter of fact, I'm sure that some of you can already chime in and say, yes, you've experienced this. Or if not, pay attention to see if this is something that you notice. So, this is what happened. So I do clinicals, and here lately, because I'm doing a bridge program for students, that their clinicals are on the weekends. And for obvious reasons, I will not name the students, the clinical site, the school, the nothing. Okay, I'm not going to name anything to protect everybody involved, basically. But I do want to share with you what happened over this past weekend, and so you can basically see if, I wouldn't say see, but so that you can be on the lookout or alert when things like that happen, maybe in your clinical situation or even if in your work situation. Things like this happen in work as well. So basically what happened was this: I have a mixture of students, okay, and I have 8 nursing students, and 2 of them happen to be Caucasian and 6 of them happen to look like me, okay, various shades of looking like me, very beautiful. All of them are very beautiful women, all 8 of them. But I take no issue with how I teach them because I teach them all the same. At the end of the day, I want them all to be successful in their careers as a nurse because we are one at the end of the day. But unfortunately for them, the facility in which we went to was not as receptive to all of them as they should be. So that's what I'm here to talk about, and to talk about how I discovered this this treatment, shall I say. So the first day we went to clinical, they go for 2 days a week. So we went on a Saturday and a Sunday. So the first day of clinical we went, everyone was very much welcoming, or at least it seemed that way, very much welcoming. And just to set it up, there were not many nurses there on that floor that looked like me at all. And I'm not saying everybody on that floor who does not look like me, who was Caucasian, was this way, because we actually had some that were very much welcoming and like take you by the hand and come on, let me show you this, let me show you that. But then we also had quite a few that were not as receptive to my African American students. So anyway, I want to kind of share their experiences and show, kind of, this is kind of how it is. And so basically what happened was the first day they were very receptive of our being there. And I always believe that you should toot your horn if you have experience doing something. Let that be known that you have experience doing something, so that people don't think you're literally brand new. But that's the gist of it. They were already nurses going back to, for their a higher degree, and we were just doing clinicals. And so I always told them, when even though they're nursing students still, that, you know, let people know that you already have this, obtained this type of education. You already have a degree and you're already a nurse. You're just advancing that. I'm basically a student too. I'm a graduate nursing student, so to speak, because I'm in graduate school, or I'm a nursing, well, yeah, graduate nursing student. So, you know, fundamentally, I'm still a student, though. I'm still learning. That's why we're in school. So I am a registered nurse and I have my degree, but at the same time, I am advancing my degree. And that's the same thing that these students were doing, or are doing, not were, but are doing. And so anyway, the first day of clinical, like I said, they were receptive and they were most of them were helpful, and, you know, wanting them to learn and things like that. Well, then that was one day. We do 12-hour shifts. And so the next day we went back to the exact same location, same floors and everything. And then, you know, once we got off the elevator to say good morning, no one spoke, or very few people spoke, actually. It was kind of like they had never seen us before, even though we were just there the day before. Now, mind you, to their defense, some of them hadn't seen us before, because it's not always the exact same nurses on one shift to the next. But the charge nurse was there 2 days in a row. So she knew we were coming, and she was very receptive to us. And she was just like, this is what we're going to do. And, you know, on and on and on. But this is the thing, though. So as the day went on, we got our assignments. We knew what we were going to do. You know, I divided my crew up from, you know, some of them were going to go to the nursery, some were going to go to postpartum, take care of patients, and then some of them were going to go to labor and delivery and take care of patients up there. Or really not take care of, but observe, you know, what L&D is really like. And so I had dropped everybody off where they need to go, or sent them where they need to go. And throughout the course of the day, I had started noticing that my two students who were Caucasian were having a great day. I mean, they were learning so much, and I was happy for them. But then I noticed that my African American, which was 6 of them, students were not learning as much. They were not getting the same type of treatment as their counterparts were getting. And I would be doing something with a student, trying to show them how to do something, and it would be a situation where how should I say this? They would come to me. One of them came to me crying, actually. And I'm kind of a mama bear, you know. First of all, you're not going to have my real babies crying, you know. So when you have my students crying, I'm like, what's going on? So I basically took her to the side, and I'm like, what is really going on here? You know, 2 students are having a great experience, and it's the same bunch of nurses. And then my other students are fussing in tears, you know, just disgruntled. What is really going on? And the thing is, if they were really doing something wrong, I'm talking about the students, why come the staff or the charge nurse or whoever did not come to me and say, hey, we have issues with your students. They're doing this, they're doing that, you know, that type of thing. So I knew by the end of the day, the second day, that these students were not doing anything wrong, because I know for a fact they would come to me and say, hey, you all can't be doing this, and, you know, whatever, and you need to talk to your students. And I'm all about students having the best experience ever, so they can learn what they can learn, take with them what they can take with them, and move on in their nursing rotations. And so basically what was going on was 2 of my students, you know, I've already kind of told you who was who. So 2 of my students were being led and grabbed by the hand and like, let me show you this, let me show you that type of thing. But then my other students, who were, I think at the time they were finished with their assessments, and they were doing their documentation, basically charting on paper, and they had sat in the lounge. And this is what started the whole thing. They sat in the lounge. And I noticed the day before, we had sat in the lounge at the end of the day there was nobody in there. We had sat in the lounge to kind of regroup and kind of talk about things. And they had came in and kind of gave this look about, you know, they didn't say anything. And I, you know, as the instructor said, you know, if we need to move, we will move. If you all need to sit down, they're like, no, you're fine. You're fine. But you could tell by their demeanor that they did not mean what they said. Their actions actually were very, very different than, their expressions were very different than what their words were. So once they left the room, I said, okay, you know what? I think we're going to go ahead. I'm jumping back to Saturday. So I'm going back and forth, but Saturday I said, you know what? let's just kind of stay out of here. We really don't need to be in here. I kind of got a vibe, shall I say. So now fast forward back to Sunday. Again, nobody was in the lounge at all. And anybody who goes to clinical, you would know that for the most part, there's nowhere for students to sit. And they already knew not to sit at the nurse's station. They already knew that. And there's no other place to sit. There was a waiting room area, a small waiting room area, but that was for families. And when I've already instructed them that when there's families in there, or when they see a family need to come sit down, that they need to go ahead and vacate the waiting area. So they knew that, and they had been listening, and they had did that. So they just went to the lounge, the staff lounge, to just sit and document. They were not eating, they were not drinking, they were just documenting, their assessment from that day. And so basically a nurse had came in, and this is the story that I was told, don't mind you. So this is truly hearsay, but I just don't see students collectively lying on people. I could see, one student doing that, not of my group, but students in general. Everybody lies. But I don't see them coming to me with a story and saying, this is what happened to me. And so we talked about professionalism, we talked about integrity, we talked about accountability, that you have to have those things to be successful in nursing. And they're already nurses, mind you. So this is not a situation where we're talking about someone who is not even a nurse. So they come to me saying, I want to tell you what happened, So I'm like, well, what happened? What's going on? Because I was with another student at the point in time. And they said, well, basically they were in there, documenting, and that a nurse had come in and she was trying to make small talk, but they could kind of tell that she really had other things to say. And before she walked out of the lounge, she said, you know what? She said that the person said, you know what? This is our eating place. This is the only place we have to eat. And students usually go to the cafeteria to do their documentation. They don't use our lounge. So if you don't mind, please not to use our lounge. And so the students were saying that, that was not a problem, that, that they didn't mind leaving. And then after that, the nurse said, oh, no, you can stay. You can stay. And the student was like, no, we'll go ahead and leave. And I can kind of, being African American myself, and sometimes how our expressions, I can kind of probably see how that expression was for my students. Because if you've come in and you've said so many words that I need to go, and then turn around and tell me that I can stay, well, I'm probably going to get up and say, no, I'm gonna go ahead and go as well. So they all came out of there. And they said when they came out of there, all the nurses were kind of like not lined up, but, kind of watching to see if that nurse actually did do, like she was set up to go and do that. And again, this is their story. So I'm telling you their story. This is not my story because I did not observe this. But it was to the point where that's where it started. And so later in the day, I had begun to notice that, they were beginning to treat me some kind of way. I mean, not blatantly in my face, like, we're going to get you or we can't stand you, but definitely a situation where I could see that something had changed. And at that point in time, I did not know that whole incident about the lounge. So they come and talk to me about it. And I said, okay, you know what, from now on, we will go ahead and be out of there. And I even told them going forward, we will not spend our time in that lounge at all. We will, we do house our things in there. So like we have a jacket, well, we don't have a jacket this time of the year, but like their notebooks or things that they happen to have, I've actually now told them to keep it in the car, but that's where it was housed, in that lounge. We put their backpacks or whatever under the sink in their break room. And so anyway, the cafeteria in which the nurse was talking about is far from the unit. And as a nurse, do you not do your documentation in the cafeteria? Don't you need to be close to your patients so if the call light goes off, you can go and attend to their needs? We don't do our documentation in the cafeteria. So for them to sit there and minimize it and tell the students to go do their documentation in the cafeteria really bothered me, because that is so far removed from the unit itself. How would we know what's going on with our patient if we were clearly off the floor in the cafeteria? So I'm like, okay, you know what? We are here. We are in their house, so we're going to respect their house. If that's what they want us to do, that's what we'll do. So then as the day went on, I went around for asking them about their 12 o'clock vital signs in terms of the staff who needed 12 o'clock vitals, which patients. And the division clerk had the nerve to kind of act like, I gave you that list this morning and nothing has changed since this morning. And I said, well, actually, there was a patient that was wheeled into a certain room and we saw her get wheeled in there and she is not on the list. So I actually know things have changed since this morning. So then she huffed and puffed inside and printed me off another report sheet with the updated, report list on it. And I just find that some of them just did not care to be wrong. I'm like, why are you treating us like this? Fast forward again, it's now time to do the 4 o'clock vital signs and fundal assessments, because we do fundal assessments every 4 hours and vital signs every 4 hours for the first 24 hours on a postpartum patient. And so the nurse had gave me a list yet again of the patients that we needed to go do fundal assessments on and the ones we need to do vital signs on. And I'm teaching these students how to do a fundal assessment. So when I'm teaching the students how to do a fundal assessment, it takes some time. And this lady was on the larger side, and so she wanted an abdominal binder put on. So the student helped me do that. And so anyway, after we get the vital signs, after we get the fundal assessment, put the binder on and get her dressing changed and do some interventions, a nurse walked in behind after we left and said, "I am so sorry, all those nurses keep bothering you." Now, I'm like, first of all, you told us to go in there and do all these things. So what do you mean you're going to go and kind of be underhanded behind us and simply say that? That day was, I'm telling you, that every time I say, "Is there anything we can do for you?" They're like, "No, we'll do it. We got everything taken care of." Like, they did not want us to do anything. And I'm telling you, we didn't do anything. But the two Caucasian students that I had, oh, they took them and they showed them how to do things. We had a new baby that was born, so we were going to go do the baby's Hep B vaccination, do the baby's erythromycin in the eyes, and the vitamin K injection. So the the student had said, the African-American student had said, "Oh, I want to see, the injection being done." Don't you know, because I was there for this, so I know this is true. Don't you know that nurse said, "Oh, well, I'm about to chart, so I'm not going to do it right now." Mind you, this is after she had already called pharmacy and called them, said, "I need this shot. I'm about to get it done now so I can take this baby out." But as soon as my student said she wanted to observe the vaccination being done, she went down, so I'm not going to do it right now. So then she walked out, and then the Caucasian student didn't know this was going on. So she went in there and said, "Hey, I thought you were going to do that shot." She's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm doing it right now." Don't you know, she got up, I watched. She got up and showed that student how to do that shot. And I was just like, I can't believe we are really doing this in 2019, where we are blatantly this way. Why are you not wanting to educate my African-American students? Why are you not wanting to take them by the side and say, "Hey, this is how we do things"? But yet you are more than, overly, affectionate and courteous to my Caucasian students. And so anyway, it was so bad. Like I said, I had a student crying. She's a nurse, but I had a student crying. I had others who were upset, saying, "You know what? I think it's a race issue. I really think that they have an issue with us," or this group of nurses. It wasn't the same group. Like 2 or 3 of them were the same from the previous day, but as a whole, majority of them were a different set of nurses. So I'm trying to figure out, why are we still acting like this in 2019? Why is it that you're willing to accept, these other 2 nurses and show them everything? And why is it that, because they're African-American and they're already nurses, and, you're wanting to show us something different or not show us anything at all? Again, if there was issues with my nurses, they have a responsibility to come to me and say, "We're having some concerns with your nurses, and so the students, so, this is what we need advice to do." No one has said anything to me, and here we are on Wednesday. I went to clinicals 3 days ago. On Wednesday, I haven't received an email. I haven't received a phone call, which tells me there's nothing that my students did that, broke a policy or a, nursing ethics or their scope of practice type thing. So that tells me there's something more sinister going on. So at the end of the clinical day, I had dismissed my students. And I said, "Okay, it's time to go home. So going forward, next week, we will kind of revise things and kind of see what will happen." And, just simply say, "Okay, we will do our documentation in the cafeteria," because at the end of the day, I'm trying to keep the peace. But at the same time, it's just not right for my students to feel like they are a nuisance to these nurses. It's not good at all. So I'm not really sure where we're going to go with this. I just feel like, how do I, as an instructor, keep my nurses and my nursing students encouraged that this is the right career choice for them, knowing that they are going to deal with things like this for the rest of their nursing career? And so it got to the point that, after clinicals was over, I had dismissed everyone. And I was wondering why people were lingering, you know, why they were lingering. And so I really just didn't know what was going on. So they come to me and said, can we talk to you for a minute? And I'm like, sure. And they said, you know what we're thinking was going on? And when they said that, it's kind of like, how you look at someone and something just clicks and you just kind of know what's really going on. And I said, you really don't have to say anymore because I already got a sense of what's really going on. I'm telling you, these nurses were blatantly rude and disrespectful to my nurses, to 6 of my nurses. Because at the end of the day, I asked everyone individually, I said, how did your day go? The 2 Caucasians said, we had a wonderful day. We learned so much. And my African-American students were like, no, like, are we even talking about the same day, same people? I just noticed that, that's what's been going on. And so I said that whole story because I have to go to clinicals again this weekend and we have to face the same people this weekend. And my skin color hasn't changed and my students' skin color hasn't changed. The 2 who are white will still be white and the 6 who are black will still be black. And people keep on asking, why are we talking about race still? Because we have to talk about race still, because race is always going to be an issue. It was an issue on Saturday and it was an issue on Sunday, even more so. Sometimes people don't like to see us succeed, and we need to figure out not why, but what are we going to do to continue to advance and push forward. That's what I think my message is, and that's what my message was to them. That at the end of the day, I want all my students to succeed, all of them. Care less what their race is. I want them all to be nurses because they all want to be nurses. But I want my African-American students, nurses, to know that you will have to deal with this from now on. And when you have my nurse crying, my student crying and saying, why is it that we can't all get along, basically? Why is it that you don't want to be receptive to new students and to nurses? Do you not remember where you were when you went through the same type of program? Do you not remember nursing school when you were in nursing school yourself? And I'm like, I think people do forget where they come from. I do think people forget where they come from. But I also think that there's some people who don't want to see certain people advance or move forward. I want to blatantly say that I do feel that there are some people who they're okay with you being a nurse as long as you're not higher than them. They're okay with you being in the same circle as them as long as you're not their boss. And I just want you to know that this is the reality that we face as African-American nurses, especially women. I can't speak for African-American men or male nurses, so I don't know what their plight is, what they go through, but I do know what we go through as registered or as nurses, period. It doesn't have to be registered nurses. But this kind of goes back to the whole thing where I had mentioned this in another video, like being a nurse while black or something like that is that video, and I'll link that one with this one. But I almost feel like they, like as long as we are CNAs, as long as we're LPNs, they are okay with that. But the minute we start advancing to say, I'm going to be a registered nurse with a BSN. Now, mind you, a lot of the nurses that we worked with that day were associate prepared nurses. Not knocking that at all. Do you be associate prepared nurse? That is perfectly fine. But again, what I'm actually speaking to, my students are going to be a baccalaureate prepared nurse. So they're going for their BSN. And with that being said, some people don't like to teach people like that. They're okay with you being at their level, but they're never okay with you advancing past them. And so when, I think a student brought up that I was in school and they're like, oh, is she going to get her, being that I'm an instructor, they say, oh, she's going to get her BSN. And we're like, no, honey. I've had my BSN for 15 years. I've been a nurse for 15 years. So I am actually going to get my doctoral degree. And when I told them that, their whole attitude changed towards me, which I try not to bring that. I try not to play that doctoral degree card in terms of going to obtain that, because most of them are going for their BSN. And when you don't look like me and you're going to achieve a higher degree than what they already have, people have something negative to say. They're naysayers. And it's very disturbing to me, and it's heartbreaking. And again, to see my student cry, this student who I'm talking about is a older student. So she has been through life. She's been through experiences. She's been through more things than I have been through. But yet this brought her down. And I'm kind of like, do not let these people bring you down, because at the end of the day, they do not pay any of your bills. They are not, you probably won't ever see them again outside of this clinical rotation. And, and if you do, so be it. But you let this be your motivation to go finish that degree and to be where you need to be, because there's people out there who only want to see you fail, and they will intentionally do anything they can to make sure that you do not make it to the top. And I even had to say to them, at least we know where we stand with these people. At least we know in our face that they are treating us this way. Because what I really can't stand is someone who is nice to you in your face but stabs you in the back. That's what I really can't stand. And so when I told them that, they kind of like, okay, yeah, you're right. At least we know what we're dealing with. I'd rather know that I'm dealing with the devil, because he is the devil himself, than to have a wolf in sheep's clothing. So I said all that again to say, be encouraged. These people will try to tear you down. They're not your friends. You have to push forward. You will be successful, and you will make it to the other side with or without them. So I have to go back on this weekend, look my students in the eye again and say, you know what? We can't prove any of this. We can't prove that they were being discriminatory towards you versus or compared to your counterpart. We can't prove anything, because, what can we say about it? And it's kind of just this, what's the word? Can't think of the word. Disheartening. That's the word. It's disheartening to know that, you have worked so hard to sit alongside your nurse counterparts. And at the end of the day, it's not about you, it's about the patient. And that they still see you as a threat. They still see you as someone who, that they have to challenge, when we are actually all in this together. So I want you to keep pushing forward, to know that they want you to quit. They want to say that you're lazy, that you're incompetent, that you're not smart, that you're complacent, that you're ratchet, that you're ghetto, that you are uneducated. But at the end of the day, you have, or will have in this situation, more education than some of them actually have. And that's the part that they cannot stand. They cannot stand that you have overcome adversity just to be where you are. They can't stand that you're the single parent out there who nothing was handed to you. You're on welfare, you're on the, welfare assistance, and you are still doing the same thing that they're doing while they're living at home with their mother and father and have support from their family. Now, mind you, I'm not knocking having support from your family, because that's how it really should be. That's how it should be. We should have support from our family. We should get help. We should have things kind of like how they have them, but that's not how our cards are stacked for us. They're stacked against us. And what they hate is, I'm talking about myself in this situation, what they hate is the fact that we get to the same place that they get to, but we had to take a different road. We had roadblocks, and we still get there. And they're kind of looking at us like, how did they do that? Keep doing it. Keep doing it. So I want to encourage you all to keep doing it. I think that's pretty much it with this. Hopefully my students are doing okay this week, and they're not reflecting on the situation much. I know they think about it, but, and they'll think about it again when we go back to clinical this weekend. But I want you to stay encouraged, and everything's going to be okay. And if you have any questions or comments, please comment them below. If you want to email me your personal concerns regarding how to handle situations like this, feel free to do so. I have personally been there myself as a nurse, as a registered nurse. I'm actually going through it now as a student, a graduate student. And I just learned to ignore a lot of it, and to know that, if nothing else, you keep me focused on what my dreams and my ambitions are. It's really my haters, like I told you all before, that keeps me going. And if it wasn't for my haters, then, not that my support system's great, by the way, but sometimes it's those haters that give you the extra oomph to say, okay, you know what? I'm about to prove you wrong. And when I come back with that degree and say, how are you doing? My name is, and I have a BSN now. We'll see how you feel when you still have your ASN, in their situation. So anyway, this is it. Be encouraged. Email me, comment below, DM me on Instagram, follow me over there. I will leave all that information in the comment box below. But until the next time, you all take care.